Good afternoon,
Excellent.
everybody. It is October 21st, 2021. My name is Jim Taylor with the Oregon Department of Education. I work on the CTE team and I lead the desk for career exploration and guidance. With me today is Jerica McMahan from YouScience. And today's third Thursday office hour is to support the career exploration professional learning community. And today's topic is the YouScience Administrator Portal tutorial technical assistance session. We have a variety of guests from around the state. We thank you for your presence. Please place your questions into the chat or into the community document. And we are going to say hello to Jerica and get started with our tutorial training today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And again, thank you guys so much for sitting in this afternoon. It's great to see all of you guys and get to know you a little bit better. I am going to go ahead and jump in. I'm sharing some slides here, and I'll make sure that I put these onto that document as well, so that if you need to refer back to them for any reason, you absolutely can. If you feel like you might find something helpful in there that you want to share with other educators at your school, please feel free to share that with them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. And I like to start with just a simple question to kind of get you guys thinking a little bit. Would you rather, and you can put this into the Zoom chat or you can shout it out, whichever you are more comfortable with, but would you rather be a deep sea diver or an astronaut? Or it could be, neither of those, if that's fine with you. Deep sea diver, astronaut, awesome. So as you're thinking through that, I just want to kind of, for me, it would be neither. I am terrified of both. That is like, there's so many things that are unknown and I'm just not all about that. So I'm just going to skip out on that question. I don't relate to that one at all. Next question is, would you rather be a sandcastle or be the wave? Maybe thinking about this, you can, interpret this however you want to, but, given these two options, what do you think you would want to be? Be the wave, be the wave. Lots of people want to be the wave. One person wants to be a sandcastle. Couple of sandcastles now. Excellent. Awesome. So each of us has our own reason for choosing those different options. But and it just started storming here. I'm in Alabama in the Central Time Zone. So I guess I should introduce myself here first. My name is Jerica. I am your Customer Success Manager for YouScience, and it is my pleasure to work with you guys. I am in Alabama, so I'm in a different time zone than you guys are, but please feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions. And I just mentioned that it's in Alabama because my lights just flickered and we have quite a lot of storms going on right now. So hopefully that will not interfere with our training today. But I studied at Middle Tennessee State University, where I'm from, and I taught science in the 6th grade level for several years before deciding to change into something else. The reason that I asked you these questions about whether you wanted to be a sandcastle or be a wave, or if you wanted to be a deep sea diver, is because a lot of times our students are asked with interest inventories very similar questions. What do you think you already know about yourself? And these can be kind of tricky, especially when you're given a question like this, where you're like, sandcastle or wave, I don't really know. How am I supposed to interpret this? There's so many different ways I could think about this. And our students feel the same way when we ask them questions like, how interested would you be in buying and selling stocks and bonds? And they really don't know how to answer that. And so that's kind of the beauty of YouScience, is that we use these brain games that you've heard so much about to actually assess how a student thinks rather than what they think they know about themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit today about some tips for success as you start to implement these brain games into your classroom. And then, of course, a tutorial through the educator tools, so that admin portal that everyone should have access to either already or you'll have access in the next couple of days or so. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Like Jim said, feel free to type those questions either into the Zoom chat or into that document, and we'll make sure to address those. Or if you want to unmute and you just got to ask me something, please feel free to do that. I love being interrupted. With my background in education, I haven't been interrupted in a while. So it's nice to, get back into that classroom feel. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Educator Access. Most of you should have already gotten an invitation to take YouScience for yourself or to get admin access for your school account. The cool thing about getting that invitation is that you will also be allowed to take those brain games for yourself. That's a question that I get asked all the time. So yes, accept that invitation, create that account, and then first things first, let's go ahead and take those brain games for yourself so you know exactly what your students are going to go to. You will be able to set up your own password. I like to just share that up there as those are the password requirements. In case you have some trouble coming up with those, that is the requirement for you. And again, this slide will be shared so you can have that access. But once you log in, this is what your screen is going to look like as an administrator. And I say administrator, that can be a counselor, it could be a teacher, it could be a front office worker, it could be anyone that works in a school that works with students. So that administrative portal is going to be right here at the very top of the screen. But when you first log in, you'll notice that just about everything else is grayed out for you, except for this blue section that says Get Started. This is where you'll actually click that button in order to take your brain games and experience it as a student would experience it as well. Once you've taken the brain games, you'll notice that it changes a little bit. So if you've completed those, this section right here will look a little different. It'll light up with all the different choices that you have available to you now. So within that, you'll be able to look at your specific aptitudes, your natural strengths, and what your work approach is. You'll be matched to 500 different careers, just like your students would be. You'll be able to see nearby colleges in your area, as well as the Describing You section, which is fantastic for resume writing or college essays, or just using in conversation when you're trying to describe yourself. There's also the Opportunities tab up there at the top, which is our newest feature. And that actually will connect you or your students to local and nearby opportunities for internships, externships, apprenticeships, part-time work, full-time work. All of that is being built in right now as we speak. So if you have employers in your area that you would like to appear in that opportunity section, please let us know because we're happy to reach out to them and have one of our engagement managers reach out so that they can have that local employer pop up right where your students can see them. In the top left of your screen, you'll probably notice there's those 3 stacked lines. Sometimes we call them a hamburger menu or a stack of pancakes, but that 3 stacked lines right there is going to take you to your navigation bar. So regardless of the page that you're on with YouScience, you should be able to get to that stack of pancakes up there and access the navigation pane. On the top right, there is your account access. So that's where you're going to find things like how to reset your own password, how to update your location. So if you wanted to move from the Southern Oregon area to the Western Oregon area, you can change your zip code and see the colleges section update for you. You'll see the opportunities section update for you. So your students will have access to that as well. Then at the very top, like I mentioned, we do have that administrative section for you. So your students obviously won't have access to these 3 buttons, but you will. And I want to show you what that looks like. So if you click on that admin dashboard section, that first button, that's where it's going to take you to this page, okay? So couple things to point out here. In the top left, there is the organization dropdown. If you are a teacher who is lucky enough to work at multiple campuses, you will have access to both campuses or all 3 campuses, or in Jim's case, all 130 campuses, where you can actually toggle back and forth and monitor student progress, see how things are going. All of that's going to be in that dropdown there. In the top right, there is a search bar. So you can actually search for a student by name rather than having to look through all of your different groups to try and find them. So the first thing that we're going to look at is that green shaded box for bulk inviting your students. This is probably the first thing that you're going to want to do when you get started with your students. You have to first add them to the account. So they won't be preloaded for you, but it's a very simple process, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So when we click on that button, it gives you just 2 options. It's very intuitive. You're going to either download our template or you're going to upload our completed template. So it's just a 2-step process. The first one is to download our template. What that looks like is this spreadsheet. And I will go ahead and give you kind of a pro tip that that I had to find out the hard way, and it was a little tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and give you this pro tip now. Column A, and technically all of the columns, in order for this template to be recognized as legitimate within our system, that entire first row has to remain exactly as it is. So that means you can't stretch it, you can't highlight it, you can't change the font, you can't bold things. A lot of times that'll happen where maybe somebody will send you a spreadsheet and then you'll edit it and highlight just, hey, these two columns are the ones that you need. But unfortunately, editing that top header row at all is going to make it not a valid template anymore. And so one thing that drives me crazy, because I'm a spatial visualizer, according to YouScience, is this little parentheses right here on column A gets cut off. And that drives me absolutely crazy. And I want to stretch the column and fix it so that it all fits in one single line. And a lot of people can relate to that. Unfortunately, just stretching it even just a little bit is going to cause that error. So I like to give people that heads up that against your better judgment, leave that header alone and just let it get cut off there. But all that to say, if you're going to use activation codes, and I will say activation codes are fantastic for schools that don't have an email active or an email that is usable for each individual student. Some schools have that, and that's fantastic. Some don't. And it's not possible to send out an email invitation to everybody. So if that's you, you're going to want to use activation codes. The way you would do that is just go ahead and list out the number of activation codes that you need by listing the group name over and over again. And you can just copy and drag that down however many codes you need. So if you need 25, drag it down to row 26. If you need 100, drag it down to row 101. If you do have emails and you'd rather send out email invitations, you'll have to put in that email in the email option right there. So you can copy and paste that from whatever your SIS system is, whether that is Skyward or PowerSchool, or there are so many different SIS, but whatever your system is, you can usually export a student roster that includes emails and just copy and paste that into our format. The other columns are completely optional. You can leave these blank if you want and have the student fill those in when they activate their account, or you can fill them in for them. Either way, it's completely fine. So I'm going to pause really quick right here. Are there any questions about this bulk invite option? Okay, not quite yet. That's fine. All right, so once that is done, you're going to save it to your desktop or to a specific folder, however you'd like, and then upload that completed spreadsheet into our system. And whether you had the group or you didn't, it is either going to notify you to create the group and the invitations, or it'll tell you the number of invitations that had been added to an existing group. So that's what it'll look like. You'll just choose the file that you want. It'll pop up right there, and then you'll click upload. So back to that admin dashboard. That bulk invite section is what you have to complete first in order to get any students into the system. But I know that, mid-year or a couple of weeks after you do this bulk invite, you're going to get a transfer student, you're going to get a new group of kids, things are going to change, and you're just going to need to add 2 or 3 extra students, and you don't want to have to go through that whole bulk invite section. So instead, if you've just got 1 or 2 that you want to add really quickly, you can use the Get Students Started section right up there at the top. And again, this gives you 2 options. The first one is to manage invitations, and that's where you'll just click invite on the group that you want to invite a student to. You'll type in their name where it says email or name or email, and then you can click invite. Obviously, if you don't have an email for that student, that's completely fine. Just uncheck this box right here and then click invite, and it should generate for you a personalized activation code for that student. Now, if you are using activation codes, not emails, and you need to distribute those to a student, you're going to want to go to that download activation codes button right there. So first you upload this to your groups, and then you're going to go find this download activation codes button. And what that looks like is you'll actually be able to choose the group that you want to download codes for and click the download button, and it'll load a CSV for you with a randomly generated 8-digit, usually. Sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 10, depending on how many codes we have going out at the time. But it'll randomly generate a code for your specific student so that they can access YouScience from the website. There's also the Manage Group section. This is going to be really helpful for you. This is probably where you're going to spend the most amount of your time. This is where you'll actually click into groups and you'll be able to monitor your student progress, impersonate your students and see the page exactly as they do. You can click on group settings, and this is where you're going to add any teachers who you want to have access to a single group. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and let you know that there's 2 different levels of administrative access. A administrative organizer. That's going to be the type of user that can access all groups. So they'd be able to see class of 2025, class of 2023, and class of 2024. They'd be able to invite students, monitor students, run reports, all of that. A group manager is a level down from that, where instead of being able to see all groups across the school, they'd be attached to a single group. So they'd be able to see the one group that you've given them access to. You can add them by clicking on that group settings button and then typing in their email right here where it says group managers. There is also that archive group button that I like to point out. So as the year goes on, your students graduate, they're no longer in your school, you can archive that group. That way it kind of removes it from your dashboard and out of your reports. So you just type in the email of the person that you want to add. So maybe this is a teacher who only needs access to one group instead of all of the groups. It's easier for them to manage. It's easier for you. So that's a great case to use a group manager. Make sure at the very bottom, there's that Save Updates button. Make sure you click that. Otherwise, it won't send them the invitation. This is also a page where you can change the name. So this happened the other day. I was helping a school onboard and they got confused and listed their students as class of 2025, and it was supposed to be class of 2024. And they'd already invited all of their students to that group name. And they were very worried that they would have to do the entire bulk upload again and move all of the students. And really, it's not that difficult. You can just go through here and type in what you want the name of the group to be. So if that happens to you, feel free to change that at any time. Another cool part of managing your groups is the View Group button. You can also access this just by clicking on this black bar at the top. They do the same thing. But this is where you'll be able to see different tabs of your students and their activity. So the All Active Users section is going to show any students that you've invited. The Pending Invitation section is going to show students in either not sent yet, or you've sent it out, but they haven't accepted it yet. So that is where you'll find those. You'll notice that the status here, this one says queued. That just means that we have queued it up to be sent, but it hasn't been sent by the system yet. In the pending invitation section, it's either going to be listed as not sent, sent, or queued. Once it is out of that section, it'll go to the in progress section. So this will show you students who have created their account, they've begun their bio section, they've begun the brain games. All of those students will be listed here. You can see them by name and by email and see their current status. The next button on your admin dashboard is the download engagement report section. This is where you can get kind of a higher level view rather than having to go through each group and scroll through to see where students are at. You may want to run an Excel spreadsheet and just be able to see that in one big place. So that looks like this. You'll click on the type of report that you want to run, whether that's for a single group like the class of 2025, or if you want to run all of your active groups right now, you can run that too. We'll just run a single group for you here. You'll select the type of group that you want to download the report for and click download. And then it'll load a CSV for you where you'll be able to see the student's name. You'll also see their status. So whether they have results ready, their assessment is started, their bio is complete, all of that will be listed for you. You can see how many careers they've saved. So once they complete the brain games and they go back into their results, as they save careers, the number will appear right here for you. You can also see how much time is left in their assessment. So this is really helpful when you're trying to get those last few students to finish up their brain games. You can reach out to them specifically rather than asking a classroom full of kids, hey, who still needs more time on their brain games? The last button is for managing your organization. This is where you'll add that administrative level of access. So if you want someone to have access to your campus where they can see all groups, not just one, you'll add them with that Manage Organization button. It looks exactly like the adding a group manager section, except for this one, you're adding a group admin. Again, you'll just type in their email, click add, and of course, make sure that you choose that Save Changes button at the bottom. Any questions about that? I'm going to scroll through really quick and see if any questions have come up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we've got 7 schools in here, or 7 groups, but then when I look at the engagement reports and I go to active groups, only 3 of them come up. So I don't know why.
Are they all active groups or are they archived?
Well, I looked in archived too, and that didn't seem to correlate to what I'm thinking of as far as, yeah, it looks like only 1 school is coming up in the engagement. Well, wait, maybe, I'm sorry. So, yeah, a few years for 1 school as opposed to, we've got like 7 schools, but anyway, I don't want to take up everybody's time. So
no, that's a really great question. I'm glad that you pointed that out because I think I know exactly what's going on now.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and I'm gonna come over here to my own page. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my own admin dashboard. And I think what you're saying is you've got 7 schools, but when you click on the download engagement report, it's only showing you 1 school.
Right.
So the reason that's happening is because you can only run an engagement report for the school that you're currently listed on with this drop-down menu. So you'll have to go to each of your schools and you can choose, okay, now I'm going to go to the middle school. It'll flash for a second and then you'll download the engagement report for that school. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Great question. Thank you for asking that. And there was another question that I saw. Let me see. Where's the chat? I lost my chat.
Oh, I see. Oh,
there it is.
I'm going to jump in really quick and say, yes, this is being recorded. And Jerica, what's the extent of instructions that are available in the knowledge base for the administrator portal work?
Great question.
And I will add that as this is in editing process, I will create a sequence of what the topics are so that when you look at the YouTube video, you can jump to that topic and just watch those mini segments. I'll also put in the chat a link to a tech session from earlier this year that is about an hour and a half in length and very, very, very detailed, less of an overview and more of a deep dive. So, okay, Jerica, back to you on that question about the knowledge base.
Awesome. Yeah. So the question came in about the set of paper instructions. Is that what you're referring to? Okay,
yes, correct.
Awesome. Yeah. So the paper instructions, we don't really have a ton for students at this time, but if you go to
I think more specifically for the administrator who's trying to manage the system rather than the student. Yeah.
Great question. So we have several tutorial videos that I could put in your hands. Basically, if you go to our help center, so that is, let me find it here. If you're in that stack of pancakes in the top left, there's the help center that you can navigate to here. It's also going to be on your home page. You can access that right here in the middle of the screen where it says help center. So that's going to pull you up to this page right here. It does have this fantastic searchability that you can type in keywords like lesson plans, and it'll pull up those lesson plans for you. So you can choose post-secondary, high school, or middle school. So feel free to look for specific keywords if you need to. But there's also this career guidance YouScience card. That's the first one, and it's probably where you're going to find most of those resources. So if you click on that, it's going to open up this entire library of resources available for you. So whether that is, for example, admin portal tutorials down here, which is where I would spend a lot of my time if I was just getting started. As you can see, we've got link after link after link of specifics for if you just need to remember how to send an email invitation, or if you need to have instruction on how to move students between groups. You can access all of that here. How to pull insights reports, how to download student PDF reports, all of that is here. And if I click on one of these, so how to use your new admin portal, for example, this is going to be like a quick video walkthrough, but it has a video for you here, but then it also has some written pieces that are just helpful for you as like a summary of the video. So I hope that helps answer your question on where you can find some of those resources. If I go back to like how to invite account admin, for example, I'll get written instructions as well as a video walkthrough. So we find that that's pretty helpful. You can feel free to type that into the search section as well. So if you have a question about like sending invites, for example, you can type that in and it'll pull up several resources that it thinks you're thinking of, how to invite account admins, etc. Does that answer your question for paper instructions? Is that what you were looking for?
I think that sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect. You got it. All right. Were there any other questions, Jim, in the doc for right now?
No, I've been answering those in typed form, and we'll cover some of them at the end as well.
Excellent. Cool. All right. So I'm going to jump back in. So we looked at how to invite students. So the next thing I was going to talk about was the knowledge base. Perfect timing, guys. So the knowledge base is where you're going to access all of that information. Feel free to use that search bar. Feel free to use the library card as well. There's several other cards like the precision exams card or the trainings and webinars card. And some of our other partners have their own cards as well. So feel free to check into those if you're interested in them. But just keep in mind that the pilot project, most of your resources, if not all of them, are going to be found in that first resource library card. So the next thing that I'm going to show you guys is insights. This is where you can actually view aggregate data of your student results at any time. This is going to upload regularly. So as more and more students at your school complete their brain games, their data will be added to this report. So you don't have to wait for a specific day of the week when that updates or anything like that. It updates live as students complete. When you click on Insights, it's going to give you several options. If you are a high school teacher, you're going to see 4 different choices. If you are a middle school teacher, you're only going to see the clusters match report because that's the only one that's available at the middle school level. So don't freak out if it looks like something's missing. Middle school only has that clusters match choice. But each one of these does something a little bit different, and we can do a deep dive on them if you have questions about any one in particular, but I was just going to do a bit of an overview for each one here. Several of the reports you can run to show a student's fit. So this is going to show a specific student's name. This is Lucy Wallace, sorry. It'll show her graduation year and then the program of choice, and it'll tell you as the educator, does Lucy have the aptitude, interest, or overall fit for this specific program of study. So this is really helpful for 8th graders as you're planning or forecasting for what they're going to do in high school courses, whether that's electives or CTE courses. You can use these reports to help steer those students into their best fit pathway. That way they're deciding on what their courses are, more focused on who they are rather than who their friends are. because we know that students like to choose the course that their best friend is going into, even if they have no aptitude for the Spanish language at all, like I did, even though that's where all my friends were going. So helping students pick those right courses so that they're really tapping into their own personal talents. Here's another one that I like to show. This is, it'll show you your de-identified student information. So you can see a specific pathway like carpentry or construction, electrical or plumbing, and it'll tell you how many students in your school who've taken the brain games have an aptitude or have an interest for that specific category. It even shows this section over here, your male to female aptitude versus interest ratio. So there's 1.32 times more girls interested or that have an aptitude than are showing interest. So in some cases, you might find something very surprising there. It's always interesting to look at. Amy Lukens just chatted in and said, on the clusters match report, can I split student aptitudes at a school by attribute, sex, ethnicity, English language learner, grade level, etc.? Great question. So we don't have a report that will show that demographic information built in. I know that we have provided that for another client of ours for an additional cost, but it was a separate report that wouldn't show, it wouldn't just automatically be pulled up with your insights. But that's a really great question. If that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to get you in touch with Amy Bradley and we can figure out how to get that information to you. But at least for right now, it's not embedded into that report. But great question. Sparked another question. Just confirming there is a gender option for non-binary students or someone not identifying as male or female. Really great question, Amy. Thank you for asking that. That is something that is really high up on our priorities list. As of last week, I believe, maybe a week and a half ago at this point, we had a priorities meeting with our product development team, and that was the top priority for them. We have been collecting feedback from several of our clients right now. And if you have feedback for me on that, I'd be happy to take it down. Right now, what we're thinking is that there will be a third option released very soon. We're still deciding on what that option will be, whether it will say, I prefer not to say, whether it will say other, or if it will say like non-binary. I think those are the three choices that we've come down to, but we're still collecting feedback on what would be most inclusive for that. I think other has been pushed to the side because we've gotten some feedback from some of our counselors that that's not as inclusive. So it will probably be either I prefer not to say or non-binary. But again, if you have feedback, if you think this choice would be the best one, we're taking your votes. So please let us know on what you think would be most inclusive for that question. For right now though, because you may have your students logging in tomorrow and you may have that question come up. If you have students who let you know in class that, hey, I don't want to pick one of these, just have them, just make sure that they know that it is their account and they can choose whatever they are most comfortable with. We're not collecting that data for any reason other than the insights reports to show that male to female aptitude versus interest breakdown. We did do a study a few years ago that used that information specifically to show equality across aptitudes, to show that women are just as, if not more likely to be successful in traditionally male careers. So things like construction and plumbing and IT, things that were dominated by the male gender. We did do a study with male to female as a choice so that we could see where aptitudes lie. So that's where that question comes from, but please let them know that it can be whatever they choose to be. So whatever they most identify with. I hope that answers your question. I'm still in the clusters match report. What's the difference between advise and recruit? Great question. So advise is going to let you see, let me go ahead and pull this for you so we can show it to everyone. If you're in the insights section, and obviously this is going to be my demo group, so it's very small data. I think I've only got like 10 or 15 students in here. But if I go to the clusters match or the majors match or the CTE match, I'm able to see that there's these toggles between advise or recruit, right? So it kind of gives you this summary here. It shows the top ranks of the top 3 CTE pathways for each student. And then if we look at recruit, it's going to show the top pathway overall. So instead of giving them like the top 3 match, it's just going to show all of them. You can also filter these based on whether you offer that program or not. So I like to use recruit specifically. Let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. You can filter the program and say our school offers these choices for our CTE programs, and you can check the box for the ones that you offer at your campus. So maybe that's culinary arts and electronics. Once you choose the ones that you offer at your school, you can apply those filters and it will force fit your students into that category. So basically, instead of saying, you know, John has an aptitude for agribusiness, if your school doesn't offer agribusiness, it'll show him the one that he's most likely to be successful in, given the options that you have. So maybe that's carpentry, maybe it's computer science, and so on.
I'm going to interrupt really quick. I think that's a great place to just to remind. So advise versus recruit. Advise is that one-on-one opportunity with the student, whomever that might be, classroom teacher, counselor, even parents engaging. But the recruit aspect also opens up the conversation for school administration and educators to talk about what programs you're going to offer based on the aptitudes that are available in your school with your students. And we've had that as a result of our early pilot project where schools are adding programs, removing some programs, adding FTE, creating more opportunity because the aptitude is present. So
great addition. Thank you. Perfect. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Any other questions about the insights reports at all?
Well,
we can touch on some more of them.
When you're looking at one of the cluster reports, like, so if you bring one up, so if it's got those little toggles, the arrows, so scroll down a little and see the little arrows next to aptitude fit and interest fit and all that. Can you sort by that? If you click that, something happens, but it seems like it's just alphabetical.
Yeah. So it's kind of tricky because this arrow is very close to the aptitude fit.
Okay.
But this arrow is actually adjusting the career cluster. So that's changing the alphabetical order of the cluster. There's also the search filter. So if you know that you want to look for a specific cluster like teaching, you can type in teaching and it'll pull up just that one. Or if you want to look up carpentry, for example.
So it's the arrow to the right
cluster
of the column header.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Right. So I can filter this by alphabetical first, and then I might want to filter by top aptitude fit.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And then down here, it will show, and this is all demonstration student info, so you don't have to worry about editing any of this. This is all fake information. But here we have student specific information. So this is just joking and not real. And a couple of people who have just created fake accounts, people that work here have created fake accounts for it. So here's Lynn Troxler. If you've ever worked with Ben Troxler, that's his alter ego. But you can look at specific students now, as well as the de-identified information. You can see their specific name as well as what their top 3 fit is. And that is broken down by aptitude, interest, or overall fit. I always tell people to look for that overall fit because it's a good 50-50 match between aptitude and interest. So that's where your student is going to feel most successful and most engaged at the same time. All right, any other questions about clusters match or about one of the other reports? I'd be happy to open them up for you.
And I'm going to just check in with you, Jerica, what you think your estimated time is on the rest of your slide deck.
How much time do you want me to have? Because I can make
we're at 45 minutes in.
Okay.
And we're looking maybe at 10 to 15 more, so we have some space for question and answer.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Any Q&A, guys?
Looking for a thumbs up. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay, awesome.
All right. So I guess I'll show some best practices for getting implementation started and then zip through that before we go to questions, right?
Sounds
I just want to
great.
make sure that I'm following correctly. Okay.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so steps to success. Make sure that you are sharing this out as much as you can. We want your community talking about YouScience so that students are hearing it from multiple places. Maybe their mom asked them about it. Maybe it was a mentor at the Boys and Girls Club. Maybe it was another caregiver. Maybe they saw it on a bulletin board or in the newspaper. Share this out wherever you can so that students are hearing the name of YouScience and they're getting excited about it. You're also going to want your parents to talk about it too so that they understand what's going on with their student and they're able to have those conversations that lead to planning for their future, whether that's a high school course or post-secondary. Which brings us to youscience.com/school tools. Jim, that might be one that we want to put in the resources section. youscience.com/school tools is a fantastic place for you to get templates or flyers, any information that you're going to want to share with parents. There's some really great conversation starters in there for parents who may not know how to talk to their student about their future. And we're actually updating that right now with the state of Oregon so that there is translated versions of it as well, so that we'll have it in English, Spanish, and then I think we might be working on another language as well, possibly Russian. Don't want to make any promises, but yeah, so we are translating that so that you can share that with multiple areas of your community and have everyone engaged. Things to keep in mind as far as technology and getting started. You're going to want to make sure that students have access to a desktop or a laptop. The brain games themselves cannot be completed on a tablet at this time. The results of it can be, you can access results from any device, whether that's a phone, tablet, desktop, laptop, any of that. But we know that the brain games function the best on a desktop or laptop. So make sure that you have those set aside for your students. Current browser version, as well as just a stable high-speed internet. We also have a technology requirements checklist in that knowledge base that you can send over to your IT team to make sure that there are no bumps in the road and that everything goes smoothly on test day. So following that bulk invite section.
Quick interruption. Chromebook okay? And
Chromebooks are okay.
Yep.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. Yes, Chromebooks are completely fine. We just found that for some, like, I guess it has to have a keyboard and a mouse in order to function correctly for the brain games. But again, they can look at their results on any tablet as well. So go ahead and set your timeline ahead of time. Think through these steps. Make sure that you know, how are we going to kick this off with our students? There are several kickoff materials in the knowledge base that you should check out. There are videos, there are PowerPoints, different things that are already made for you. So make sure that you show this to students and build up that buy-in, get them excited. That's another reason why we want you to take your brain game so that you can see the power of it before you show it to your students. They're going to create their account bio and student bio, and then they're going to begin the brain games. They can do this either guided with you in the classroom, or if you're a virtual school, or if you want to offer this as a homework assignment, you can absolutely assign this as something that they do independently. They don't need to have a teacher authorize them or anything like that. So once you invite them, they can do this completely on their own or in a small group or as a whole group. We also have a sample implementation breakdown that I can share with you. It's in the knowledge base as well. We have a 2-day proctoring plan and a 3-day proctoring plan. So you can fill that out and see what works best at your school. And then, of course, we want you to engage your students with their results. So we have several opportunities available for you to either watch a results walkthrough training that we offer every week. You can get some of our results walkthrough materials on the knowledge base as well that include worksheets or workbooks. We've got different lesson plans and activities for students to engage with their results, both on their own and with others. So there are some really great lesson plans for them to connect with their peers and just kind of compare and contrast their results and become more self-aware as well as more aware of who's around them. Here are some things to keep in mind about the brain games. So this is just really helpful when you're thinking about that brain game environment. One, always make sure you've got internet connection, make sure that it's a quiet room. We want students focused on this. Take away or have them put away phones and smartwatches. Make sure that you read the directions and complete practice questions before each brain game. And then this part's really important. Make sure you plan breaks for your kids, especially at the middle school and even into high school levels. We know their attention spans can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 15 minutes tops, and asking them to complete brain games for an hour is a good investment of their time and energy. So make sure that you plan some breaks for them. They don't have to complete it all in one day, so don't try and force them to. The more rested they are, the more likely they are to perform at their highest level for those aptitudes. So don't let them get to that brain fatigue. Plan those breaks out for them. So if you have not already, make sure that you fill out the readiness form. I recognize several of your names and faces, so I know that I've met with a few of you already, but if you haven't already filled out that form, please take a second and do that. It doesn't take very much time, just helps me get an idea of how many students you're working with, when you plan on getting started, and what goals you've got set for YouScience. So please fill that out as soon as you can. You're welcome to book a call with me if you need some help going through that. I'm happy to fill that form out with you on the call, or you can fill it out on your own. There is that help center at the knowledge base. We have that linked on the document today, so feel free to dig into that, find out all of the information that's in there. I promise it is like an onion. It just keeps going into more and more layers. There's tons of information. And of course, reach out to our support team or to me if you have trouble finding something in that knowledge base, because it is pretty lengthy. Let me know, and I know it like the back of my hand, so I can shoot over some resources for you pretty quickly. All right, Q&A. Any questions?
Awesome. I'm going to stop recording